Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. This is the second video that I've done. This is video number 2, and it's going to be a review of Conan, Titan Comics, Conan's issue number 1 and 2. Sci-fi and fantasy is the major theme of this channel, although it will not be the only theme by any stretch of the imagination. But since it is sci-fi and fantasy, I figured the first video was over the first science fiction book that I ever read. If you didn't see that video, go back and check it out. It's in the channel. You can just go in and click on it. Number 1, labeled The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Young Adult Science Fiction. And number 2 had to be Conan. It had some form of Conan. It just had to be Conan. There's going to be a lot of Conan in this channel going forward. Wanted to do a Conan, and there's a rumor out there on BookTube somewhere that this is Sumerian September, so I figure I would slide this one in for Sumerian September, and I'm sure there'll be many more for this month as well. But this is going to be Conan number 1 and 2 with Titan Comics, because I think that's the biggest news in the world of Conan coming out. And just for a slight digression here, I know I introed these YouTube videos, these BookTube videos, by saying I'm sending this video out from Graham's End in the Shire, and I do kind of live in the Shire. When we moved out here 20 years ago, it was definitely the Shire. But as we live out here, unfortunately, the forces of progress keep creeping out, and the Shire gets less and less. So one of the other things that I'm going to be doing on the channel is I'm going to be loading shorts of just little clips of around the area here where it's still, in my opinion, the Shire before it gets overrun by the forces of Sauron and Saruman in the form of the intel production that is slowly creeping over everything out here. So check out the short section of my videos as well. I'll load up those videos as I take them out there and put them up, and hopefully that'll be sort of a preservation time capsule of what this place used to be before inevitably it'll change under the forces of progress. But anyway, back to the main topic today, and that's going to be Conan and Cimmeria in Titan Comics with issues number 1 and 2 of Conan the Barbarian, which I can't tell you how happy I am that Conan is back in print in a new form for a new generation. That's fantastic. And we've got it here from Titan Comics. So the first thing is a giant shout out to Titan Comics for taking this on and bringing it to life and bringing it back to people once again. I'm deeply appreciative of what they've done with this comic book. There are good and bad parts to it. I'll go over both. But I think it's important to, sort of keep track on the main thing here, the main goal, which is that we've got Conan back in print, which is awesome. So what do we got? We've got Conan number 1, which is right here. I've got one of the alternate cover versions here. I would have liked one of the other covers, but this is the one I got from my comic book shop. And it is, my mistake. I'm showing Conan number 2. Let's go back, hit the rewind button, disregard that last. Here's Conan number 1 with one of the alternate versions. It's a good version, it's a good cover. This is great artwork. So let's just delve right into it. Right on the front, Titan Comics puts this up, and you've got an advertisement. They've taken not just the rights to Conan, but all the previously published Conan. So they're putting out a big omnibus, a compendium of the Savage Sword and of the old Conan comic books. And I've already ordered the Savage Sword one. Did it through Amazon, which might have been a mistake. They gave me an October production date for my copy of the Savage Sword Omnibus, which when I get it, I'll put it up and do a review of it. And then I get a message from Amazon that's been pushed back out to December. So I'm hoping that happens. Hopefully they don't cancel on me and I wind up empty-handed, but I have faith so far, and hopefully I get that one for all of you to review. So on the front page here of the comic book, you get a nice little map over here on the left, and it shows you that the action is taking place around the old fort of Venarium, which was stormed by the Cimmerians in the comic books, or not the comic books, but the regular books, where they attacked it and destroyed the fort of Venarium and halted Aquilonia's northern progress into the area of Cimmeria. And that's where this novel picks up, or this comic book picks up. And it picks up in an outpost there on the edge of the town. And it starts very appropriately with a bar fight. And look at that splash page. I mean, that's just gorgeous. That's one thing. The artwork in here, you just cannot complain about this artwork. It's by Robert De La Torre, and he just nails it. The artwork it's a love letter to John Buscema, the great artist from the Conan comic series and from all the Savage Sword episodes, graphic novels. And I'll definitely be doing Savage Sword on here as well. But this is just fantastic artwork. You couldn't ask for better. I know it's a little strange when you get somebody who is copying John Buscema's style so faithfully. It can be a bit odd, but I would much rather have this than a modern take on Conan. I mean, this is Conan. It just fits in there. It nails it. 2 thumbs up to Robert De La Torre for doing this. And look at this splash page. It's fantastic. And you got a bar fight to start off Conan. I mean, what better place to start Conan than in a bar fight? I think did it right there. So we've got Jim Zub, who is the writer on this. You got Robert De La Torre, who's doing most of the artwork. And then you have the colorist as well, and the other people who are working in on this thing. So let me put on my old man glasses. I can give you an exact rundown. We got Richard Starkings doing the lettering, and the color artist is Jose Villarrubia. Just like to say a little bit about color in these comics. It's a bit dark, the coloring, but I think it fits into the theme of this, that you're up right on the border of Samaria and you're in the grim, gray, dark lands and the dark, foreboding hills of Samaria, which is how Robert E. Howard wrote this. And it does fit into this very well. And it's not distracting from it. And also, with modern comics, you're not able to get the vibrant colors that went into the old comic books, the old Jack Kirby, Fantastic Four, this just bright colors that leaped off the page. It just doesn't happen in modern comics for a variety of reasons, and one of those, unfortunately, is the expense of it. But in this case, it actually does work for this comic. So that's that on the comics there. After the splash page, you've got this bar fight that breaks out, and then in the middle of the bar fight, they get interrupted by a Pict who comes riding in on a horse, who is Brissa. It's a female character. We find Brissa's entrance into here. And here she comes. Here comes Brissa the Pict coming into the scene. And she comes in to give a dire warning of impending attack by a dark army that's descending on the outpost. Of course, they don't heed her warning. If they did, it would change the comic. You can't heed the warning that comes from somebody, as it would spoil the rest of the plot, so they say. And then this dark avenging army descends on the outpost and just destroys it. Predictably, everybody, with the exception of Conan and Brissa, who find themselves as allies. And you get another splash page here of the dark army coming down onto the outpost. And again, this is just fantastic. Look at that artwork. It's gorgeous. The artwork alone is worth the price of admission on this. So again, hats off to the artist. I just love it. So Briss and Conan, they wind up fighting their way out of the avenging army. And you get a lot of battle scenes going on here. The action is great. The posing is great. De La Torre knows what he's doing while he's writing this comic, while he's illustrating it. And predictably, they're almost the sole survivors or the only sole survivors. They make mention of some other people that get out, but the only two that you see that come out of the comic are Conan and the Pict Brissa. Now, I know that there are a few people who were kind of nitpicking Brissa on this, saying that she doesn't look like a Pict. And they do give a little bit of an explanation as why she looks a little different from the traditional Picts of Robert E. Howard's story. And I'm fine with that. I think it works, and it works fine. And at the end of issue number 1, you've got them going up into the homeland of Samaria, where the Sumerians are already engaged in a life or death struggle with the army of darkness, which is, I'm going to give this away, but we're doing a review of the book, so the whole thing's got spoilers. But it's a bunch of zombies. It's zombies, and it's going to take a turn right down Game of Thrones with the White Walkers. It's kind of the White Walkers version of zombies. Which when I saw the zombies coming in, I was like, the zombie thing's been done to death. So I'll see where you're going with it, Jim Zub. But I'm gonna hold back judgment until I see where you're running with this. But right now, I'm a little shaky on the zombie thing with Conan. Although I love the bar fight, the fantastic way to kick off Conan #1. So highlights, you've got Conan back in print. Thank you, Titan Comics. Can't thank you enough. Thank you, Jim Zub. Thank you, Robert De La Torre and the rest of the creative team for bringing this back and putting it back in the hands of the fans. It's fantastic. The art is just off the charts. It's great. You couldn't have asked for better, in my opinion. The writing, it's good. I like where it's going, but I got a little bit of reservations on it. So I held out for issue 2, and then we get issue #2. Correctly up here this time. Got the comic, the right comic holding up here to the screen. And this is the cover that I got. There's multiple cover versions, and I'll show you the pages at the end where it shows you all the different covers. But here it is, Conan #2. So let's get right into it. Same creative artistic team. And now you've got Conan and Brissa, and they're sitting there and they're tracking the army, the army of darkness, the zombies that are now hauling their dead north into Samaria. And you see up here, they've got a big bag of slain villagers from the outposts and soldiers, and they're dragging them north. And you know what's going to happen. You know that this is just going straight down Game of Thrones, the White Walkers, and that's where it does wind up going. But you've got a couple problematic things, I think, that pop up in issue 2 that you're starting to see in issue 1, and they really kind of start leaping out in issue 2, unfortunately. And it deals with the writing. So the first thing that I'm going to go over in the writing, and again, I got to put on the old man glasses, but the first thing is just you've got some very un-Conan-like dialogue going on here. So Conan and Brissa, they've tracked this army of undead, and now they're resting for the night as the army is paused, and there's a little bit of conversation going back. And Conan says to Brissa, who's asking about the cold, isn't it biting into your bones? Because all he's dressed in is a loincloth. It all got ripped off of him in the fight at the outpost. And she goes, "Do you not feel the cold biting at your bones?" And Conan replies back, "Not while I burn with the need to see vengeance served and this army undone." And it just hit me the wrong way. It's just not, to me, it's not Conan. It's not something Conan would say. It's a little too, what's the word? I guess righteous. Although righteous is kind of a good word to use because that word comes up later here in the dialogue. But shortly after that, he and Brissa then wind up making love about 100 yards away from this zombie army, which I find it incredible that you've just watched this outpost slaughtered, ripped apart, a bag of dead bodies dragged north. You're trailing the army up there. You're 100 yards away from it, tracking it, and you decide you're going to take off all your clothes, all your armor, put your weapons aside so that you can engage in a bout of lovemaking in the bitter cold. And it's just thought that was not, I think, what reasonable people would have done there at this point. Not even Conan, as a savage, would have been engaged in this bout of lovemaking. And then, unfortunately, it goes downhill from there, if you can believe it, because when the lovemaking bout is over, you get this line of prose coming out of Brissa. She goes, "You are magnificent. I felt every battle you fought still raging within you." I almost put the comic down at that point. I mean, that's just terrible prose. It's awful. It's just cringe. And then at one point, then after this, you get Conan referring to his righteous fight for freedom at the siege of Venarium, at the storming of the fort of Venarium. And at this point, I think Jim Zub has gone off the track of to me what is Conan and what represents Conan, and Conan's as a barbarian and his means of thought and how he would act and the words that would come out of his mouth to a significant degree. I'm still in. Get me, I'm all in on this comic book. I'm going to keep buying it. I do like it. I still give it an overall thumbs up of approval. I encourage you to go out and buy it. But I think we've gone off track. But it's only issue 2, and I'm hoping that Jim Zub can bring it back to be more in line with Robert E. Howard and Robert E. Howard's barbarian that he constructed within the pages that he wrote for the Pulp Fiction magazines that he put out in the 30s. So hopefully it gets a little better, but again, I'm still all in on this comic book. So from here, you get Conan and Brissa as they track this army north. And to Jim Zub's credit, you get the resurrection, you get your White Walker resurrection a la Game of Thrones, and then you get a fantastic splash page from Del Toro. Here it is. Just beautiful. Again, the artwork is worth the price of admission alone. And you get this gorgeous splash page. And then Jim Zub brings it back. He brings it back to classic Conan at the end here. Where are they? They got a wizard in a tower. Conan and a wizard in a tower. And how now you've got the chance to steer the ship and get it right back on course. So I'm really looking forward to issue 3. I think Jim Zub's going to nail it. That's my personal opinion. I think he'll pull it back in. Hopefully he can clean up some of the language in here. You get an awful lot of 3 and 4 syllable words coming out of the mouths of these two, this Pictish barbarian and a Cimmerian barbarian, that just great when they're coming off the page. And I hope that can get curtailed in. Maybe go back and take a look at some of those Roy Thomas Savage Swords and look at the language, the lexicon that he was using in there, and start trying to mimic that. That was excellent stuff. It fit right in with Robert E. Howard. It was fantastic work, and in my opinion, those Savage Swords are probably the greatest graphic novels that were ever made. And again, those are definitely going to be future issues of Savage Sword are here and going to be in the channel and being reviewed. And then I mentioned they've got a number of alternate comic book cover issues that they put on here. And here they show you all the alternate versions that you could have got of the comic book. I really like the one that I've got here. It is, and again, if you bear with me while I put on these glasses. So the version I've got is from Alan Qua, and it's pretty cool. I like that cover. So thumbs up, Alan. And thumbs up to Titan Comics for this series again. I'm really looking forward to issue 3. I'll definitely review it when it comes out in October. And we'll see if Jim Zub can fully right the ship. It's not sunk, it hasn't capsized by any stretch of the imagination, but I think there's a couple of things there that Mr. Zub can iron out. And I'm sure that Robert De La Torre will continue to knock it out of the park with his artwork. So that's it. That's episode number 2 here, the official second book review episode. And like I said, it had to be Conan of Cimmeria, Robert E. Howard's Conan, although it's not Robert E. Howard's work. Robert E. Howard is my favorite. He's my favorite fantasy author of all time. I think he's just fantastic at what he did, and the fantasy world owes him a huge debt. So he will be a major thrust of the channel here. But again, the channel is going to cover a lot more than just science fiction and fantasy. And hopefully on video number 3, the next one I'll put out, we'll do something a little different. Try to widen up the variety for you guys. But in the meantime, please take care, be safe, and hopefully I will be seeing you in the future.